So what do we have here? Blood pressure, cardiac output, total peripheral resistance, right? You've seen those before. We can break these apart, right? So cardiac output is stroke volume times heart rate. Okay, so that we already know. Stroke volume is EDV minus ESV, right? So all we're doing is taking what we know already, that blood pressure is cardiac output times total peripheral resistance, and we're breaking it out into the different pieces, all right? Now, the reason we do this is because different things affect these different parts, right? So like total peripheral resistance is an increase in sympathetic nervous system increases TPR, right? We've talked about that. Vasomotor center innervates all the arterioles. When the sympathetic outflow increases, arterioles constrict all over the body. That increases total peripheral resistance, right? So that's sympathetic nervous system. The opposite's also true. As S and S goes down, TPR goes down, right? So those are two things that affect total peripheral resistance. Now we have things that affect heart rate, right? So as sympathetic nervous system increases, heart rate increases, right? As parasympathetic, oops, here, let's not do that. How do I erase? Okay, well, PSNS, as it goes up, heart rate goes down. Okay, so those are two effects on heart rate: sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic. Now the opposites are also true, but I'm not going to write them, right? So when the sympathetic nervous system decreases, heart rate goes down. When the parasympathetic nervous system decreases, heart rate goes up, right? And remember, we talked about the mechanisms of heart rate in particular quite a bit. It was on the test. We talked about it just the other day, right? The how much potassium permeability there is, how low the cells hyperpolarize, remember, and then depolarize back up. So that's all this stuff. Okay, then we have EDV and ESV. Okay, so EDV, there are a lot of things that affect it. Okay, so when venous return goes up, EDV goes up, right? That's when plasma volume goes up, EDV goes up because of venous return. Okay, other things with a venoconstriction, right? So like when the sympathetic nervous system increases, we get venoconstriction. That's a long word, venoconstriction. And then that results in an increase in EDV. Do you get the connection there? Because we're pushing more blood back to the heart because it's not in the veins just sitting there, okay? So those are all things that increase EDV. Then we have ESV. I didn't leave myself a path there. All right, so an increase in sympathetic nervous system activity causes a decrease in ESV. Remember, a decrease in ESV is a good thing for cardiac output, right? So this is contractility. This right here is contractility. Okay, because remember, the sympathetic nervous system not only increases rate, but it increases the vigor that the heart contracts with, right? So it gets smaller. We get a decrease in ESV. Now, we can also link two of these, right? Because as EDV goes up, ESV goes down. What's that called? Yeah, that's Frank-Starling relationship. Okay, and this combination, remember, means that your stroke volume doubly so goes up, right? So you have all those. All right, now there are things that make ESV go down too. This is getting really messy. Here, let's do filling time. Filling time is how long the heart has to fill before it empties. Okay? So the more time the heart has to fill, the more full it gets. So as filling time increases, EDV increases, right? But I don't know why it does that. But that also means that as here, let's put this over heart rate. As heart rate increases, filling time decreases. Okay, do you get that? As if the heart's beating faster, it has less time to fill. All right, now make the rest of the connections. If it has less time to fill, it gets less full. So a decrease in filling time is a decrease in EDV, right? And therefore a decrease in stroke volume. That's actually the reason why our hearts can't beat effectively at 200 beats per minute, right? There's not enough filling time, so we don't get much of a cardiac output. ESV, here we're still talking about that, wherever the heck that is. It's gotten really messy. All right, afterload. As afterload goes up, ESV goes up. You guys are like, what the heck is afterload, Dr. Key? Afterload, all right, so think about this. In our pressure volume loop, okay, before the heart can start to eject, it has to do what first? It has to open the valve, right? It has to open the aortic and pulmonic valves. Afterload, the higher the diastolic blood pressure, the more pressure the heart has to make before the valve opens, right? So if it has to push harder to open the valve, it's going to empty less well because it had to spend more energy to open the valve in the first place. So it means that as afterload goes up, in other words, as diastolic blood pressure goes up, ESV tends to go down. How will that affect stroke volume? Up or down? Down, right? If the ESV is bigger, the heart gets less small. It pumps less out, right? So the stroke volume gets smaller between those two.